I thought my fiancée's bachelorette weekend would be nothing more than champagne, laughter, and memories with her friends. But that trip became the beginning of the end of our engagement, our future, and everything I believed about love, loyalty, and trust. If you had asked me 2 years ago what love meant to me, I would have said her name. Emily. Everything in my world revolved around that woman, her laugh, her little habits, the way she made even the dullest Tuesday feel special. We met 8 years earlier at a coffee shop in Boston. I was grading papers. I taught computer science at a small college, and she came in from the rain, carrying a broken umbrella and swearing under her breath. I looked up, offered her a napkin, and somehow that moment changed the course of my life. Emily was a marketing executive, full of life, constantly surrounded by friends. I was quieter, a planner, a thinker, but we balanced each other perfectly. Where I hesitated, she leapt. Where I overthought, she reminded me to breathe. I proposed to her 3 years ago, under a sky lit by fairy lights in her parents' backyard. She cried before I even opened the box. It was one of those moments that feel permanent, a still image you think will never fade. If I'd known how fragile forever could be, maybe I would have held on tighter. When Emily's best friend, Lee, offered to plan her bachelorette party, I didn't think twice. They'd been inseparable since college. Lee was loud, hilarious, and one of the few people who could keep up with Emily's chaotic energy. They decided on a weekend at a rented lake house in upstate New York, a place with a hot tub, private dock, and enough bedrooms for the whole bridal party. Emily was ecstatic. She spent weeks picking outfits, decorations, and novelty gifts. I remember the night before she left. She was running around our apartment, tossing clothes into a pink suitcase, humming along to some pop song. I sat on the couch, half smiling, half nervous. "Me, you sure you're going to be okay? It's a long drive." Emily, laughing. "Dan, I'm going to a lake house, not a war zone." "Me, I know, but—" "Emily, don't tell me you're going to miss me already." "Me, always." She came over, kissed my forehead, and whispered, "I'll text you when we get there, okay? Stop worrying, I'm not going anywhere." That last line still echoes in my head sometimes. I'm not going anywhere. The group left early Friday morning. Lee, Emily, and 6 of their friends, Rachel, Tina, Jess, Megan, April, and Claire. They piled into 2 SUVs, blaring music and waving goodbye as they turned the corner. For the first time in months, our apartment felt empty. I told myself to relax. She deserved this trip. She worked hard. She'd been under stress from wedding planning, and I wanted her to have fun. Friday evening, around 8 p.m., I got a text from her. "Emily, we made it. The place is gorgeous. Lee's already drunk. Send help," face with tears of joy. I laughed, sent her a picture of our cat, and told her to have a great time. She responded with a heart emoji. Everything felt normal. Saturday morning, I went for a jog, ran errands, did laundry, anything to keep busy. But by evening, I realized I hadn't heard from her all day. No calls, no texts, no pictures. Emily usually couldn't resist sending updates. At around 9 p.m., I texted, "Hey babe, everything good?" No response. Midnight came, still nothing. I checked her social media, no new posts, though Lee had uploaded a few short clips, blurry dance videos, a bonfire, some laughter in the background. Emily's voice was there, faint but recognizable. It calmed me for about an hour. Then, right before I went to bed, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Emily. "Sorry babe, service here sucks. Everything's amazing, love you." Short, cheerful, and slightly off. Normally she'd say "love you too" or send a kiss emoji. This time, nothing. I told myself I was reading too much into it. Sunday evening, they came home. I met her at the door with open arms, and she hugged me like everything was fine. She smelled like campfire smoke and perfume, and her smile was just a little too perfect. "Did you have fun?" I asked. "So much fun. "It was incredible," she said quickly, brushing past me toward the bedroom. "I'm exhausted, though. I just want to shower and sleep for a week." While she unpacked, I noticed she was quieter than usual, distant. She kept her phone face down on the dresser and turned it off before bed, something she'd never done before. Over the next few days, life went back to routine, but she wasn't the same. She'd laugh at my jokes, but her eyes didn't light up. She'd reach for my hand, then pull away as if she'd remembered something halfway through. I tried to tell myself it was post-trip exhaustion, maybe the stress of wedding planning, but that quiet voice in my head, the one I'd ignored too many times, kept whispering, something happened. A week later, Lee stopped by. It was supposed to be a quick drop-in to help Emily finalize wedding decorations. But when Emily went upstairs to grab a box, Lee's demeanor changed. She looked uneasy. "Me, everything all right?" "Lee, yeah, of course." "Me, you sure? You look like you've seen a ghost." She forced a smile. "Just tired, the weekend took it out of me." But she couldn't hold eye contact. That night I asked Emily, "Did something happen between you and Lee?" Her fork paused midair. "What? No, why?" She seemed weird. Emily shrugged. "She's probably just stressed. Her breakup been rough." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. A few days later, I was looking for a receipt in Emily's desk drawer when I found her tablet. Normally, it was used for work presentations. But when I opened it, a notification popped up from a group chat titled Lake Legends Woman Dancing. Curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. The chat was mostly memes and jokes, until I scrolled back to the weekend. My heart sank as I read messages from Lee, Megan, and a few others. "OMG, last night got way out of hand," face with tears of joy. "Can we agree to never tell Dan about what happened?" "Emily's gonna need to practice her poker face law." I stared at the screen, frozen. The next message was from Emily herself. "Don't even remind me. I can't believe I did that. Please, no one ever bring it up again." My chest tightened, my ears rang. I sat there for a long time, just staring at her name above those words. When she came home that evening, I didn't confront her immediately. I wanted to see if she'd tell me herself. She didn't. She made dinner, talked about her day, kissed me goodnight, and went to sleep like nothing was wrong. I lay beside her, staring at the ceiling, replaying every line from that chat. I can't believe I did that. Over the next week, I became a man obsessed. I went through her social media, the group's accounts, everything I could access. Most of their photos from the weekend were either deleted or cropped. In one, I saw Emily's reflection in a mirror, a half smile, a hand on someone's shoulder who wasn't visible in frame. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Every time she laughed, I wondered if she was laughing at me. Every time she said, "I love you," I heard the echo of "Please, no one ever bring it up again." Finally, one evening, I asked her outright. "Me, Emily, did something happen at the lake house that I should know about?" Emily, frowning, "What do you mean?" "Me, I found messages from your friends. They said things got out of hand, that you—" She froze, then turned pale. "You went through my tablet." "That's what you're upset about," I snapped. She rubbed her forehead, avoiding my eyes. "Dan, it wasn't like that. We were drunk, it was stupid, and it didn't mean anything." My stomach turned. "So you did do something?" She was silent for a long time before whispering, "Yes." Just like that, a single word, and my whole world collapsed. I didn't shout, I didn't cry. I just sat there numb. "Me who?" "Emily, it doesn't matter." "Me, it does to me." Emily, someone Lee knew. It was supposed to be a joke, flirting, dares, whatever. But I drank too much and— "Me and what?" Emily, whispering, and I crossed a line I can't uncross. I got up and walked out of the room. I didn't trust myself to speak. She followed me to the hallway, crying. "Dan, I swear it meant nothing. It was one night. I don't even remember all of it. Please don't let this ruin us. I looked at her, the woman I'd planned to spend my life with, and I realized that the person I loved wasn't standing in front of me anymore. That night I slept in the guest room. I stared at the wall until sunrise, listening to her muffled sobs from the next room. The next day she tried to talk, but I couldn't face her. My heart wasn't ready. I didn't know whether to feel rage, sadness, or pity. All I felt was empty. The wedding was 2 months away. Invitations had been sent, deposits paid, everything ready. And now I couldn't even look at her dress hanging in the closet without wanting to tear it apart. She begged for forgiveness. She said it was a mistake, that she still loved me. But how do you forgive someone who looked you in the eye and swore they'd never hurt you, then did exactly that? I started sleeping at my brother's place. I told people we were taking a break. Emily called every night crying. I couldn't answer. Part of me still loved her. Part of me always will. But love doesn't erase betrayal. It just makes it hurt more. When I finally told Lee I knew, she broke down completely. She apologized over and over, saying she should have stopped Emily, should have said something sooner. But apologies can't rewind time. The wedding was called off. My parents were devastated. Hers were confused. Emily moved in with Lee for a while. I stayed in my apartment, surrounded by ghosts of a future that never happened. People always say infidelity is a single act, one night, one decision, one mistake. But it's not. It's a crack that keeps spreading long after the night is over. And even now, months later, I still wake up sometimes expecting her beside me, before remembering she's gone. And so is the life we built. The week after I called off the wedding was a blur of phone calls, silence, and sleepless nights. If you've ever had to untangle a life you built with someone, you know it's not a single heartbreak. It's 1,000 tiny ones every day. Returning the venue deposit. Canceling the photographer we both loved. Texting my friends to say, it's not happening anymore. Each message felt like carving a piece of myself out and throwing it away. Emily tried to reach out every day. Calls, texts, emails, even a letter handwritten, folded neatly and left on my doorstep one morning before I woke up. I didn't open it right away. I couldn't. Her handwriting alone made my chest tighten. When I finally read it 3 days later, her words hit like a punch. Dan, I know I destroyed everything. I know sorry isn't enough. But please don't remember me for that one mistake. Remember all the years we were happy. I would do anything to fix this, but I know I can't undo what I did. I just want you to know I still love you, even if you can't love me back anymore. I sat on the couch holding that letter for hours. The love was still there, tangled, suffocating, stubborn. But love without trust is like trying to breathe underwater. You can fight it all you want, but eventually you drown. My brother Jason was the one who finally dragged me out of the apartment. He showed up unannounced on a Saturday morning, wearing his usual Boston Red Sox cap, carrying 2 coffees and a look that said, "I'm not leaving until you move." "Come on," he said. "You've been locked up here for a week. Let's get out." "I'm not in the mood," I muttered. "I know, that's why we're going." He didn't give me a choice. We went for a drive, no destination, just silence and the hum of the engine. Eventually, we parked by the harbor and sat watching the boats drift. "You did the right thing," Jason said finally. I let out a bitter laugh. Doesn't feel like it. Yeah, doing the right thing rarely does. We sat there for a while, and for the first time in days, I didn't feel like I was suffocating. A few weeks passed. I tried to focus on work. My students noticed I was quieter than usual, but they were kind. One of them even left a little note on my desk that said, "You're the best professor we've had. Don't forget to smile." It shouldn't have made me tear up, but it did. Then one night around 11 p.m. my phone buzzed. It was Lee. "Lee, can we talk? Please, it's important." I hesitated before answering. Her voice was shaky when she spoke. Dan, she's not doing well. Emily. She barely eats, barely leaves the house. She cries all the time. I know you hate her, but I thought you should know. I don't hate her, I said quietly. I wish I did. Lee sighed. She made a terrible mistake, Dan. I'm not asking you to forgive her. I've never seen her like this. There was a long pause. She said you're the best thing that ever happened to her, Lee whispered, and that she threw it away for nothing. I didn't know what to say. Guilt, anger, sadness, they all swirled together until I couldn't tell them apart. After we hung up, I sat there in the dark, staring at my reflection in the black TV screen. The man looking back at me didn't look like me anymore. He looked older, tired. A month after the breakup, I decided to clear out what was left of her things. Half of the apartment still smelled like her: lavender perfume, vanilla candles, the faint trace of her shampoo on the pillow. I boxed up her books, her clothes, the framed photos from our trips. But one photo stopped me cold, the one of us at the lake from 3 summers ago, smiling, her arms wrapped around me, sun in her hair. We'd been so happy then, or at least I thought we were. I sat on the floor, staring at that photo until I couldn't anymore. Then I placed it face down in the box and taped it shut. But closure is cruel. Just when you think you're healing, something drags you backward. For me, that something came in the form of a message request on social media. The sender's name was Adam, someone I didn't recognize. His message was short. Hey, I'm sorry to reach out like this, but I think I need to tell you something about that Bachelorette weekend. My heart dropped. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity won. Me, who are you? Adam, I was there, a friend of one of the girls. I didn't know she was engaged until later. I just thought you should hear it from me. She wasn't tricked or pressured. She knew what she was doing. I'm not saying that to hurt you, but you deserve the truth. I stared at that message for a long time, the words blurring. I typed and deleted a dozen responses before finally writing. Thanks for telling me. That night, I deleted her number. Not out of anger, but because I realized I couldn't keep reopening a wound that wasn't going to heal if I kept touching it. Months passed, seasons changed. I learned to live without her. At first, the silence was unbearable. Every morning felt like waking up in a world slightly off balance. But slowly, I started to breathe again. I went back to the gym, started hiking, met friends I hadn't seen in years. I even started therapy, something I'd resisted before. My therapist, Dr. Patel, was calm and direct, the kind of person who could make even the hardest truth sound survivable. One session, she asked, "What do you think you miss the most, her or the idea of her?" That question haunted me for weeks. Because the truth was, I missed the version of Emily that existed before the lake house, the woman who made me laugh, who believed in us, who made promises she intended to keep. But that version didn't exist anymore. Maybe she never did. In February, nearly 6 months after the breakup, I ran into Lee at a bookstore downtown. She looked surprised but genuinely happy to see me. You look better, she said, healthier. Guess time really does help, I said. We talked awkwardly for a few minutes. Then she said, quietly, Emily's moved out. She took a job in Seattle, said she couldn't stay in the same city where she ruined everything. I nodded, not sure how to feel. Relief, sadness, closure, maybe all of it. Before we parted, Lee added something that stuck with me. She told me she hopes you find someone who loves you the way you loved her. I wanted to say something, anything, but my throat closed up. That night I pulled out the letter Emily had written months before. For the first time, I didn't feel the urge to cry or scream. I just read it calmly, folded it back up, and tucked it into a drawer. Then I opened a blank notebook and started writing, not to her, but to myself. It wasn't a letter of forgiveness. It was a promise that I'd stop living in the past. You can't rebuild the same house after it burns down, I wrote. but you can clear the ashes and start over somewhere new. By spring, I'd started teaching again full-time. My students noticed the change, the energy back in my voice, the small jokes during lectures. I wasn't pretending anymore. I was healing. One afternoon, after class, a colleague named Sarah stopped by my office. She joined the department a few months ago, smart, kind, with that quiet confidence that reminded me of what peace used to feel like. We talked for hours about books, movies, and travel. When she laughed, it wasn't forced. When she listened, it was real. And for the first time in a long time, I caught myself smiling, genuinely smiling. I didn't ask her out that day. I wasn't ready, but I walked home lighter than I had in months. That night, I opened my phone and scrolled through old photos of Emily one last time. Instead of deleting them in anger, I archived them. I didn't need to erase the past, just release it. I whispered into the quiet apartment, "Goodbye, Em." There was no bitterness left in my voice, just peace. Life doesn't end after betrayal. It pauses, it stumbles, it hurts in ways you can't explain, but then slowly it begins again. And when it does, you start to realize that losing someone who didn't value you isn't the tragedy you thought it was. It's the universe making room for something better. Spring came quietly that year. The air smelled different, cleaner, lighter, as if the world itself was gently reminding me that things grow back, even after winter strips them bare. It had been 8 months since I ended things with Emily. In that time, I'd gone from barely functioning to living again, slowly, deliberately, like a man relearning how to breathe. The nightmares had mostly stopped. The dull ache in my chest still came and went, but it didn't consume me anymore. It was just there, like a scar healed but still sensitive to touch. My days were simple. I taught, I read, I cooked for myself. I even joined a weekend hiking group, something I'd never have done before. That's where I saw Sarah again. We'd run into each other a few times at work, exchanging casual smiles in the hallway. But that Saturday, when I spotted her standing near the trailhead with a coffee in hand, the universe seemed to give me a gentle nudge. She grinned when she saw me. "You, outdoors, didn't peg you for a hiking guy." "Trying new things," I said, smiling. "Apparently that's how people heal." She chuckled. "Guess I should hike more then." That first hike was awkward in the best way, comfortable silences, genuine laughter, the kind of easy conversation that doesn't demand anything from you. She didn't pry about my past, and I didn't ask about hers. It was like we both understood that some stories aren't ready to be told. Afterward, we grabbed lunch at a cafe overlooking the lake. The same lake, ironically, where I'd once planned to take Emily for our honeymoon. I thought it would sting, but it didn't. Not this time. Sarah talked about her passion for photography, her obsession with rainy days, and how she once backpacked across Iceland alone because heartbreak makes you do stupid, brave things. I laughed. I think that's the most accurate description I've ever heard. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't faking the smile on my face. Over the next few weeks, Sarah and I started spending more time together. Not dates, exactly, at least not in the beginning. Just two people slowly orbiting each other's gravity. She'd stop by my office with coffee. I'd help her move boxes when she switched apartments. We'd text at night about random things, bad movies, weird dreams, her cat's obsession with string. There was no pressure, no expectations, just something real, something I'd forgotten could exist. One evening, we stayed late at work grading papers. The building was almost empty, the only sound the soft hum of the printer and the occasional creak of the old wooden floors. Sarah glanced up at me and said, "You know you're different now." I looked at her confused. "Different how?" "You used to have this sadness behind your eyes," she said softly. "It's still there a little, but it doesn't define you anymore." Her words hit me harder than I expected. For months, I'd felt like my identity was built entirely around what Emily did, the betrayal, the loss. But in that moment, I realized I'd become more than that pain. "Thank you," I said quietly. She smiled. "Don't thank me, just keep going." By June, the city was alive again, street fairs, late sunsets, the hum of people rediscovering joy. Sarah and I started taking photography walks on weekends, her camera always hanging from her neck. One evening, we watched the sunset from the pier. She was snapping photos while I leaned on the railing, watching the sky turn orange and gold. "You always stare at the horizon," she said. "Why?" I thought for a moment. "Because it reminds me there's still more ahead, even when you can't see it clearly." She smiled at that, the kind of smile that said she understood exactly what I meant. It wasn't love yet, not the overwhelming kind I'd felt with Emily, but it was something better. It was calm. And calm, I realized, is underrated. Then, just when I thought the past had finally loosened its grip, it found a way back in. It was a Wednesday morning, ordinary in every sense. I was answering emails between lectures when I saw the notification. New message request from Emily. My heart skipped. For a moment I considered deleting it without reading, but curiosity, that old familiar ache, won. Her message was short. "Hi Dan, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I wanted to say something. Please read this, I promise it's not what you think." I hesitated for a full minute before opening it. "I'm not reaching out to fix anything. I know we're beyond that. I just wanted to thank you for loving me when I didn't deserve it, for showing me what real kindness looks like. I've been in therapy for months now, trying to understand why I did what I did. There's no excuse, just selfishness and insecurity. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted to tell you that you were never the reason. You were always more than enough. I'm leaving for Seattle tomorrow. I got a new job, a fresh start. I hope you have that too. You deserve someone who will never make you question your worth." I read it twice, maybe 3 times. There were no tears this time, just quiet acceptance. Then I typed, "I appreciate the message. I'm glad you're getting help. Take care, Emily." And that was it. The last chapter closed not with anger but with peace. That night I sat on my balcony, the cool summer wind brushing against my face. For the first time in years, I felt light. Not because the pain was gone, but because I wasn't carrying it anymore. Healing, I realized, isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering without hurting. A week later, Sarah invited me to her photography exhibit, her first big one. She looked nervous when I arrived, adjusting frames on the wall, checking labels. "Hey," I said softly, "you're going to be amazing." She smiled, exhaling a shaky laugh. "You think?" "I know." The photos were breathtaking, portraits of strangers, city streets after rain, sunsets that looked like dreams. But one photo stopped me in my tracks. It was the lake, that lake. The same one I once associated with everything that went wrong in my life. Only now in her photo it looked different, calm, alive, full of color. Sarah walked up beside me. "That one's my favorite," she said quietly. "I took it last summer. I was in a bad place back then. But when I saw how the sunlight hit the water, it reminded me that beauty doesn't disappear, it just changes form." I turned to her, smiling. "You have no idea how much I needed to hear that." After the exhibit, we walked outside, the city lights shimmering against the night sky. She looked up at me. "You ever think about how much pain teaches us?" "All the time," I said. "I used to think heartbreak ruined me, but maybe it just stripped away everything that wasn't real." Sarah nodded, her eyes glistening in the streetlight. "Then maybe that's not such a bad thing." Weeks turned into months. Summer melted into fall. Sarah and I became inseparable, slow, deliberate, and honest in a way I never thought possible again. One evening, as the leaves turned gold outside my window, she asked me what I'd learned from everything. I thought for a long moment before answering. "That love isn't just about who you die for," I said softly. It's about who you can live with peacefully, truthfully, without fear. She smiled, leaned her head on my shoulder, and whispered, "Then you're finally where you're meant to be." Later that night, I opened the drawer where Emily's letter used to be. It was empty now. I'd thrown it away weeks earlier without realizing it. And strangely, I didn't feel regret, just gratitude. Gratitude for the love that once was, for the lessons it taught me, and for the second chance at happiness I never thought I'd find. Because sometimes, closure doesn't come with a final conversation. It comes quietly, in the moments when you catch yourself laughing again, and realize that the echo of pain has finally faded. It was almost exactly 1 year since everything had fallen apart. 1 year since I walked out of that hotel room. 1 year since I packed my life into boxes, and 1 year since I learned what betrayal truly felt like. And yet standing there that morning in the same city, under the same rising sun, I felt new. Like the man I'd been before it all happened had quietly returned, only wiser this time. Sarah and I had become something solid, something steady. We weren't rushing into forever. We didn't need to. She once told me, "You can't rebuild trust overnight, but you can choose to be trustworthy every single day." And she lived by that, in small, meaningful ways that reminded me what real partnership looked like. We spent our weekends hiking, cooking, taking road trips. We shared playlists, silence, and morning coffee. There were still moments when the past crept up, a memory, a dream, a sudden ache. But instead of burying it, I learned to face it, breathe through it, and let it pass. Healing isn't linear. It's not a finish line. It's a rhythm you learn to move with, some days soft, some days sharp, but always moving forward. One crisp October afternoon, Sarah and I drove up to the cabin where I used to go as a kid. It was tucked deep in the woods, surrounded by amber leaves and quiet streams. I hadn't been there since before Emily and I got engaged. Back then, it was supposed to be our honeymoon spot. I'd never had the heart to go back. When we arrived, Sarah looked around and smiled. "This place is beautiful. Why haven't you brought me here before?" I hesitated. I guess I wasn't ready to rewrite what it meant to me. She squeezed my hand gently. "Then let's do that together." That evening, as the sun dipped below the trees, we lit a fire. I sat on the porch, watching the smoke curl into the night sky. I thought about the man I'd been, the one who trusted without hesitation, who believed love was unbreakable. And then I thought about the man I'd become, still hopeful, but grounded now, cautious but not closed. Sarah came out with 2 mugs of hot chocolate. "Penny for your thoughts," she said, sitting beside me. "Just thinking about how strange it is," I said. "A year ago I thought my life was over. Now I'm here, watching the sunset, feeling okay." She smiled softly. "That's the thing about pain. It doesn't ask permission to enter your life, but eventually you get to decide how long it stays." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time I understood what peace looked like. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, patient, and honest. A few days later, after we returned home, I got a letter in the mail. It was from Emily's mom. My stomach knotted when I saw her name. She'd always been kind to me, called me the son she never had. I opened the envelope carefully. "Dear Daniel, I hope this letter finds you well. I won't take much of your time. I just wanted to say thank you for how you handled everything with grace. I know what my daughter did was unforgivable, and I don't blame you for walking away. She's doing better now, in therapy, working, rebuilding her life. She told me you replied kindly to her message. That meant more than you know. I'm not writing to reopen old wounds, only to wish you peace. I truly hope you found someone who treats you with the same respect and love you always gave Emily. You deserve that kind of happiness. Take care of yourself always. With gratitude, Diane." I folded the letter and set it down gently. For a long time I just sat there, feeling an ache I hadn't expected, not sadness, but closure. There was no bitterness left in me, just quiet understanding. People make mistakes. Some you can forgive, some you can't, but either way, you can move on without carrying their shadow. That weekend, I took Sarah back to the lake, the same lake that had once been a symbol of heartbreak and broken dreams. We stood at the edge, the water glistening beneath the setting sun. I pulled a small envelope from my jacket pocket. Inside was the last memento from my past life, a photo of Emily and me at our engagement party. Sarah noticed, "You sure you're ready?" I nodded, more than ready. I tore the photo in half, not out of anger but out of release, and let the pieces flutter into the wind. They landed gently on the water, drifting away like tiny paper boats. Sarah slipped her arm around me, resting her head on my shoulder. "Feels lighter, doesn't it?" she whispered. "Yeah," I said quietly, "it finally does." Later that night we sat by the campfire, wrapped in blankets. The stars shimmered above us, countless, infinite. Sarah turned to me, her face illuminated by the glow. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "When you think back to her, do you still feel anger?" I shook my head slowly. "Not anymore, just gratitude, weirdly enough. If that hadn't happened, I might never have learned who I really was, or what I actually needed." She smiled softly. "And what do you need, Daniel?" I looked at her, her warmth, her honesty, the way she saw me without trying to fix me. "This," I said simply, "just this." Over the next few months, life settled into something peaceful. We moved in together, got a small apartment with too many bookshelves and not enough space for her art supplies. Mornings were coffee and music, nights were laughter and quiet conversation. There were still days when old memories surfaced, anniversaries, random songs, certain places, but I didn't avoid them anymore. I let them come and go, like waves against the shore. Because that's what healing really is, not pretending the pain never happened, but learning to live alongside it without drowning. One winter morning, as snow fell softly outside, Sarah handed me a small gift box. "Open it," she said, smiling. Inside was a keychain, a small metal compass. Engraved on the back were the words, "You found your way back." I laughed softly, blinking away the tears that came anyway. "Do you like it?" she asked. "I love it," I said, "but I love you more." She smiled. "Good, because you're stuck with me now." That night, as I lay in bed beside her, I thought about how strange life can be. How a single moment can break you, and another can rebuild you. How the same heart that shattered can learn to love again, slower this time, but deeper. I realized that love isn't about promises or perfection. It's about showing up every day, even when it's hard. It's about choosing each other and yourself, again and again. Months later, I found myself back at the college where it all began. I was giving a guest lecture to students about literature and human emotion, how stories mirror life, and how even tragedy can lead to transformation. At the end, one student raised her hand and asked, "Professor Adams, what do you think is the most important lesson about love?" I smiled thoughtfully before answering. "That it's not about never getting hurt," I said. "It's about what you do after the hurt. Whether you close yourself off forever or open yourself again, even if it scares you." The room went quiet, and I could see it resonated with them. Maybe because they, too, had been through something they thought they'd never recover from. After class, I stepped outside. The air was cool, the sun low in the sky. I took a deep breath, feeling the quiet satisfaction of a man who'd finally made peace with his own story. As I walked through the courtyard, I spotted Sarah waiting near the fountain, waving at me. She held up 2 coffees, her grin wide and familiar. And just like that, I knew this was home. Not a place, not a person from the past, but the present moment itself. When I look back now, I don't see betrayal anymore. I see transformation. I see a man who lost everything he thought he needed, only to find everything he truly did. The pain didn't destroy me, it refined me. It taught me that closure isn't something you find from someone else. It's something you create within yourself. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Sarah slipped her hand into mine. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel the weight of what was lost. Only gratitude for what was found. End of the story.